Pain, when it first strikes, is often silent. It does not roar or shatter. It seeps, steady and sharp, into the spaces you thought were safe. And sometimes it starts with something as simple as the soft buzzing of a forgotten phone. Late morning sunlight streamed through the soft beige curtains of a cozy suburban home in Boulder, Colorado, as Emily Grace Simmons sat on her living room couch, carefully folding tiny onesies. At 30, with her light brown hair pulled into its usual messy bun and her hazel eyes intent on the task, she embodied the very image of maternal anticipation. 7 months pregnant, she couldn't help but smile, smoothing each little garment as she imagined the life growing inside her. Her delicate fingers traced the soft fabric, her thoughts wandering to the quiet promises she'd made to herself and her unborn child. Emily had always been someone who believed deeply in patience and devotion, instincts as natural to her as the way she unconsciously bit her lower lip whenever she was worried, a habit she'd carried since childhood. The persistent buzzing of a phone on the coffee table broke through her reverie. It was Tyler's phone. Her husband of 3 years had forgotten it before rushing off to what he described as an emergency business meeting early that Sunday morning. Tyler James Simmons, with his meticulously groomed sandy blonde hair and those captivating green eyes that had once made her heart race, had been having a lot of emergency meetings lately. Emily hesitated, her hand hovering above the phone. In their 5 years together, she'd never once checked his phone. Trust had been her foundation, her pride, her way of loving him. But recently, something had shifted. There were subtle changes in Tyler's behavior. Late nights at the office, the lingering scent of unfamiliar perfume on his dress shirts, the way he would habitually run his fingers through his hair when explaining why he couldn't make it to another prenatal appointment. The phone buzzed again and again, 3 messages arriving in rapid succession. Heart pounding against her ribs, Emily picked up the phone. The screen lit up with notifications from someone named Sierra. The preview revealed just enough. A photo and the words "Miss last night already. When can we?" The world seemed to tilt on its axis. With trembling fingers, she swiped open the messages. No password needed. Such was Tyler's confidence and her unwavering trust. What she found shattered her reality into 1,000 sharp fragments. Dozens of conversations with multiple women spanning months, photos, hotel receipts, sweet nothings exchanged during times she had been picking nursery colors or battling morning sickness alone. For a terrible, fleeting second, a voice inside her whispered, "Maybe it's my fault. Maybe if I had been more exciting, more perfect, he wouldn't have needed someone else." Emily squeezed her eyes shut, hating herself for even thinking it. But the seed of self-doubt had already been planted, gnawing at the edges of her heartbreak. Shock coursed through her veins like ice water. She clutched the phone tighter as the room seemed to contract around her, the walls pressing in, the weight of betrayal crushing the breath from her lungs. Each photo, each message, felt like a blade slicing through the careful world she had built. Her body swayed slightly as panic bloomed full force in her chest, squeezing her heart, making her vision darken around the edges. One timestamp caught her eye, a message sent during her last ultrasound appointment when Tyler had claimed he was stuck in a client meeting. In the photo he'd sent to Rebecca, he was clearly at a beachfront restaurant, champagne in hand, that characteristic confident smirk on his face. The room spun. Emily felt a sharp pain tear through her abdomen. Her vision blurred at the edges. The tiny onesie she had been folding slipped from her fingers as she doubled over, gasping. Her last conscious thought before darkness claimed her was the cruel irony, how she'd spent years building a home on a foundation of lies, believing her love could be enough to keep their world intact. She never heard the front door open, nor felt her sister-in-law's strong arms catching her as she collapsed. Jordan Elise Parker, with her tall frame and ever-present blazer, had chosen that exact moment to drop by. A coincidence that would later feel like destiny's intervention. As Jordan's decisive voice called 911, Emily slipped into unconsciousness, unaware that this devastating Sunday would not just mark an ending, but the beginning of her journey toward unexpected freedom. The pristine surface of her life had cracked, revealing the rot beneath. But from those very cracks, something new would eventually grow, something stronger, truer, and entirely her own. The steady beep of hospital monitors pulled Emily back to consciousness. Through half-opened eyes, she saw the sterile white ceiling of the emergency room and felt the cool touch of medical-grade sheets against her skin. Her hand instinctively moved to her swollen belly, panic rising in her throat until she felt a reassuring flutter from within. "The baby's fine," came Jordan's steady voice from beside her. "But you need to stay calm." Emily turned her head to find her sister-in-law perched on a nearby chair, her dark hair pulled back tightly, sharp eyes focused intently on Emily's face. Jordan's boot-clad foot tapped rhythmically against the linoleum floor, a nervous tell that betrayed her otherwise composed demeanor. "How?" Emily's voice cracked, her throat dry from the hospital air. "Found you passed out in the living room," Jordan explained, reaching for a cup of water. "The doctor said it was a panic attack combined with severe stress. Not good for you or the baby." She paused, then added with her usual directness, "I saw the phone on the floor. Emily, I saw everything." The memories crashed back over Emily like a tidal wave. The messages, the photos, the carefully constructed lies. Her fingers clutched the thin hospital blanket as tears began to blur her vision. "How long have you known?" she whispered. Jordan's heel stopped its tapping. She leaned forward, her tailored blazer creasing slightly. "About Tyler's tendencies? Years," Jordan admitted. "But I never knew specifics, and I never thought he'd—" She ran a hand through her hair, frustration evident in the gesture. "I should have warned you. Family loyalty be damned. I should have said something." A nurse entered then, checking vitals and asking routine questions. Emily answered mechanically, her mind elsewhere, picturing a sunny living room strewn with baby clothes and broken dreams. Once they were alone again, Jordan stood and began pacing the small hospital room. "He's been calling," she said finally. "Wants to know why you're not answering your phone. Says he's worried." The sarcasm in her voice could have cut glass. "I haven't told him you're here yet," Emily murmured, closing her eyes. She could see Tyler's charismatic smile, the way he could charm a room full of people while lying through his teeth. How many times had he run his fingers through that perfectly styled hair, weaving stories about late meetings and urgent business dinners? "He'll come with flowers," Emily said softly, opening her eyes. "He'll say all the right things, make promises, tell me it meant nothing." She touched her stomach again, feeling the life inside her shift and turn, and a part of her would want to believe him. Jordan stopped pacing. Her expression softened slightly. "That's what he's counting on. It's what he's always counted on. People's willingness to believe his performance." She sat down at the edge of the hospital bed, uncharacteristically gentle. "But you're stronger than his lies, Emily. You've always been stronger than you knew." A different kind of pain bloomed in Emily's chest. Not the sharp agony of betrayal, but the dull, persistent ache of reality setting in. She thought of their house in the suburbs, the nursery she had painted in soft yellows and greens, the life she had planned with such careful devotion, all of it built on a foundation of deception. "I don't know how to do this," Emily admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm 7 months pregnant, Jordan. I don't have a job. I don't even have my own bank account." The words tasted like failure on her tongue. "Then we start there," Jordan replied, her tone brooking no argument. She pulled out her phone and began typing rapidly. "I know a good divorce lawyer. And tomorrow, we're opening you an account at my bank." Her fingers moved swiftly across the screen, one step at a time. "But we move fast, before he has a chance to charm his way back in or hide any assets." Emily watched her sister-in-law, this woman who had always seemed so cold and cynical, transform into an unexpected ally. Jordan's efficiency was its own kind of compassion, her practical approach a lifeline in Emily's drowning world. A small movement caught Emily's attention, a nurse passing by the hallway with a newborn baby. The sight sent a fresh wave of fear through her, but beneath that fear stirred something else, something surprisingly like hope. "Okay," Emily said, her voice stronger now, "one step at a time." Jordan looked up from her phone, a hint of approval softening her usually stern features. Outside the window, the Colorado sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of endings and beginnings. Emily took a deep breath, perhaps her first real breath in years, and felt the weight of false promises start to lift from her shoulders. Just as Jordan had predicted, Tyler arrived at the hospital the next morning, carrying an oversized bouquet of white roses. Emily's supposed favorite, or at least the ones he'd always assumed she preferred. His green eyes radiated concern, and his usually immaculate appearance showed signs of calculated dishevelment, as if to suggest he had been too worried to maintain his perfect facade. "Baby, what happened?" His voice carried just the right note of distress as he pushed open the hospital room door. "Why didn't anyone call me?" He ran his fingers through his hair. That telling gesture Emily now recognized as his cue for deception. Jordan, who had been reviewing documents on her tablet, stood up from her chair. Her tall frame blocked Tyler's path to Emily's bed. "Interesting that you're worried now," she said, her boot heels clicking against the floor as she stepped forward. "Where was this concern during her last ultrasound appointment?" Tyler's expression flickered for just a moment before settling back into practiced concern. "What are you talking about? I had that client meeting, remember?" He tried to step around his sister, but Jordan didn't budge. "The client meeting at Ocean View Restaurant," Emily said, her voice quiet but steady. "The one where you were drinking champagne with Rebecca." The room went deadly silent. Tyler's hands tightened around the flower stems, crushing them slightly. His mask slipped for just a fraction of a second, revealing a flash of calculation behind his worried facade. "Emily, sweetheart, I can explain everything," he started, his voice taking on that smooth, persuasive tone she had heard him use with countless clients. "Rebecca is a potential investor. Yes, I should have been more transparent about the meeting, but—" "And Sierra?" Emily interrupted, her hands protectively cradling her belly. "Is she an investor too? And Jessica? And Catherine?" Tyler's facade cracked further. He set the flowers down roughly on a nearby table, clearly buying time to compose his response. "You went through my phone," Tyler said finally, a hint of accusation creeping into his voice. "That's what you're concerned about?" Jordan's laugh was sharp and bitter. "Your wife is in the hospital, pregnant with your child, and you're worried about your privacy?" Tyler shot his sister a venomous look before turning back to Emily, his expression softening into one of rehearsed remorse. "I know I've made mistakes," he said, taking a step forward, his voice dripping with carefully measured regret. "Terrible mistakes, but we can work through this. Think about our family, our future." He gestured to Emily's pregnant belly. "Think about our baby." The words that once would have melted her resolve now felt like acid in Emily's ears. She could see through his performance now, the calculated pauses, the perfect mix of regret and hope in his voice, the way he positioned himself just so to catch the morning light. "I am thinking about our baby," Emily replied, her voice growing stronger. "I'm thinking about what kind of life I want for them, what kind of example I want to set." She met his eyes directly. "I'm thinking about how I never want them to learn that love means accepting lies." Tyler's expression hardened slightly. "You're emotional right now. The pregnancy hormones." "Don't you dare," Jordan cut in, her voice like steel. "Don't you dare try to dismiss this as hormones." But Emily raised a hand, silencing them both. "I'm not emotional, Tyler. I'm finally seeing clearly." She took a deep breath. "I want a divorce." The words hung in the air like thunder before a storm. Tyler's perfect mask cracked completely, revealing a flash of genuine anger before he could control it. He ran his hands through his hair again, this time in genuine agitation. "You're not thinking straight," he said, his voice taking on an edge. "Where will you go? What will you do? You don't even have your own money." "Actually," Jordan interjected, holding up her tablet, "she does now, and she has somewhere to go." She added with a cold smile, "She has an excellent lawyer." Tyler's face cycled through shock, anger, calculation, and finally settled on what he clearly thought was wounded dignity. "So this is what you want?" he asked Emily. "To throw away 5 years of marriage over a few indiscretions?" Emily looked at the flowers he had brought, white roses she had never actually liked, but had accepted, because they fit the image he wanted to project. Like so many things in their marriage, they were beautiful, but false. "No, Tyler," she said quietly. "I'm not throwing away our marriage. You did that. I'm just finally picking up the pieces." She watched as her words hit home, the reality of his loss registering in his eyes. Without another word, Tyler turned and left the room, his perfect posture rigid with anger. In the silence that followed, Emily felt something unexpected. Not grief or fear, but a profound sense of relief. She looked at Jordan, who gave her a small nod of approval. "Well," Jordan said, picking up the abandoned roses and dropping them into the trash, "that's done. Now the real work begins." 2 days after being discharged from the hospital, Emily stood in the doorway of her new temporary home, a modest guest room in Jordan's downtown Boulder apartment. The space was small but bright, with a window overlooking the bustling streets of the city. Unlike the sprawling suburban house she had shared with Tyler, this room felt real, unadorned, honest. "The realtor called," Jordan announced, appearing in the doorway with a stack of printouts. "She's found several apartments within our budget range." She paused, watching as Emily unpacked a small bag of maternity clothes. "Are you sure you don't want to stay here longer?" Emily carefully folded a sweater, her hazel eyes focused on the task. "I need to do this," she said softly. "For myself, for the baby." Her hand brushed her growing belly, a gesture that had become both comfort and motivation. The morning stretched before them, filled with appointments that felt like stepping stones toward a new life. First stop, the bank, where Emily would finally have access to the account Jordan had helped her open. It wasn't much, just her personal savings that Tyler hadn't known about, squirreled away from her occasional freelance editing work, but it was hers. The bank's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows as Emily signed the final paperwork. The bank manager, a woman with kind eyes and graying hair, smiled encouragingly. "Remember Miss Simmons?" she said. "We flagged any unusual activity. Your husband won't be able to access these funds." Husband. The word felt foreign now, like a shoe that no longer fit. Outside the bank, Emily paused on the sidewalk, clutching her new debit card. "It's such a small thing," she murmured, "but it feels powerful." "Independence usually does," Jordan finished, her boot heels clicking against the pavement as they walked to their next destination. The lawyer's office was next, a sleek building in downtown Boulder. Catherine Mendez, the divorce attorney Jordan had recommended, emanated quiet competence. Her office walls were lined with degrees and family photos, suggesting both professional success and personal understanding. "Tyler's pattern of infidelity is well documented, thanks to those phone messages," Catherine explained, her fingers flying over her keyboard. "Combined with the emotional distress causing your hospitalization while pregnant, we have a strong case." She looked up, her dark eyes serious. "But you should be prepared. Men like your husband, successful and image-conscious, often fight hardest when they lose control." Emily nodded, remembering the flash of anger in Tyler's eyes at the hospital. "He's already tried calling, texting. He even sent an email about working things out for the baby's sake." Catherine's expression hardened slightly. "Classic manipulation tactic. Document everything, but don't respond. Let all communication go through me." By early afternoon, Emily's head was spinning with legal terms and next steps. The legal jargon blurred together, dense and intimidating. What if she forgot something important? What if she made a mistake that Tyler could twist against her? A wave of panic crept up her spine, but she buried it under the steady rhythm of Jordan's encouragement. She couldn't afford to falter. Not now. They stopped at a small cafe for lunch where Jordan insisted she eat something substantial. "The baby needs it," Jordan said, pushing a sandwich across the table. "And so do you." As they ate, Emily's phone buzzed again. Another message from Tyler. "Just saw the bank notification. Is this really how you want to handle this? Think about what you're throwing away." Emily showed the message to Jordan, who snorted derisively. "He's panicking because he can't control your money anymore. Delete it." But Emily's fingers hesitated over the delete button. "Part of me still wants to explain myself to him," she admitted, "to make him understand how much he hurt me." "He understands," Jordan said, her voice gentler than usual. "He just doesn't care. Men like Tyler, men like my brother, they only care about the impact on themselves." Emily stared at the screen, her thumb trembling above the delete button. A wave of old instincts, pleading for understanding, craving closure, washed over her. But then, she looked across the table at Jordan's steady gaze and realized the only closure she needed was her own. With a deep breath that felt like shedding a second skin, she pressed delete. And for the first time in a long while, she felt a small, fierce flicker of freedom ignite inside her. The afternoon brought them to a small apartment complex just outside downtown Boulder. The unit was nothing like her former home, no marble countertops or designer fixtures. But as Emily walked through the modest space, she felt something shift inside her. The bedroom was bathed in warm sunlight, with just enough space for a crib in the corner. The kitchen was small but functional. The living room had built-in bookshelves, where she could already imagine displaying her beloved collection of classical literature books. Books Tyler had always dismissed as impractical. "It's not much," the realtor said apologetically, noting the scuffed hardwood floors and dated appliances. "It's perfect," Emily replied, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. "It's exactly what we need." Her hand rested on her belly, feeling a strong kick from within, as if in agreement. Later that evening, back in Jordan's guest room, Emily sat on the bed surrounded by paperwork, rental applications, legal documents, medical forms. Each piece of paper represented a decision, a step away from her old life and toward something unknown but authentically hers. A small desk lamp cast a warm glow as she began filling out the rental application. Her hand shook slightly as she wrote, "Emily Grace Simmons" in the blank space, but her writing was clear and determined. The name stared back at her, simple but powerful, a name no longer tied to anyone else's lies. A small smile tugged at the corners of her mouth as she realized she wasn't just signing paperwork. She was reclaiming herself. Outside, the city lights twinkled like stars, promising new possibilities in their glow. The first night in her new apartment felt both terrifying and liberating. Emily lay awake on the air mattress Jordan had helped her set up, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of her new neighborhood. A siren wailed in the distance, and somewhere nearby a car alarm chirped briefly, so different from the manicured silence of her suburban life with Tyler. Sleep eluded her as her mind wandered through the events of the past week. The apartment security deposit had been paid, thanks to her careful savings. Basic furniture would arrive tomorrow, small victories that somehow felt monumental. Her phone lit up in the darkness, another message from Tyler sent at 2 a.m. "The house feels empty without you. Remember our first night there? We can have that again. Just come home." Home. The word triggered a flood of memories. Tyler carrying her over the threshold, his green eyes sparkling with promises. Countless dinners spent listening admiringly to his business stories. Nights spent planning their future while his phone buzzed with messages from other women. A strong kick from the baby jolted her from her reverie. "We're okay," she whispered, rubbing her swollen belly. "We're going to be okay." Morning brought Jordan with coffee, decaf for Emily, and a determined expression, ready to tackle the nursery. They spent the morning assembling a white crib, a practical model, not the expensive designer piece Tyler had insisted on for their old house. Emily found herself enjoying the simple task of reading instructions and fitting pieces together, even as her back ached from the pregnancy. "He's been calling Mom and Dad," Jordan said suddenly, tightening a bolt with more force than necessary. "Playing the repentant husband. Says you're having some kind of pregnancy-induced emotional crisis." Emily's hand stilled on the crib rail. "Do they believe him?" Mom's wavering. You know how she is. Always believed Tyler could do no wrong. Jordan's boot tapped against the floor in its characteristic rhythm of frustration. "But Dad, I think he's finally seeing through it. He asked me some questions about Tyler's business trips over the past few years." A knock at the door interrupted them. Emily's heart jumped to her throat. Tyler had been making unannounced visits to Jordan's apartment, trying to catch her alone, but when she peered through the peephole, she saw only a delivery person holding a large box. Inside was a designer baby bassinet, accompanied by a card in Tyler's elegant handwriting. "For our little one. I know you'll make the right choice." "The right choice," Emily repeated silently, her fingers brushing the expensive fabric. "He means his choice." Jordan examined the bassinet with narrowed eyes. "Classic Tyler," she said, her voice dry, trying to buy his way back in. "What do you want to do with it?" Emily considered the bassinet, beautiful, expensive, and loaded with manipulation, just like everything else in her old life. "Can we donate it?" she asked. "There's a women's shelter downtown that would love it," Jordan replied with approval. But first, she pulled out her phone and snapped several photos. "Evidence for Catherine," she said. Shows he's trying to circumvent the lawyer with direct contact. As they worked to repack the bassinet, Emily's phone rang. Her mother-in-law's number flashed on the screen. She let it go to voicemail, but minutes later a text appeared. "Darling, Tyler is devastated. Marriage takes work and forgiveness. Think about your baby growing up without a father." The words hit Emily like a physical blow. She sank onto the air mattress, suddenly overwhelmed by doubt. "What if they're right?" she whispered. "What if I'm being selfish? The baby deserves a father." Jordan set down her screwdriver and moved to sit beside her. "The baby deserves a mother who's whole and strong," she said firmly, "not one who's broken by constant betrayal." She hesitated, then added, "You know what my biggest regret is? Staying quiet all these years, watching Tyler hurt people and saying nothing because he's family. He was so good at making everything seem perfect," Emily said softly. "Sometimes I wonder if I imagined how bad it was." "You didn't," Jordan said, pulling out her phone and opening her gallery. "Remember last Christmas? I took this when no one was looking." The photo showed Emily sitting alone at the dinner table, Tyler's empty chair beside her, while he stood in the corner, laughing with someone on his phone. Emily's face in the picture bore a smile that didn't reach her eyes, a loneliness she had tried so hard to hide. "That's not love," Jordan said gently. "That's not what you or your baby deserve." Emily touched the screen, tracing her own lonely smile in the photo. Her heart twisted painfully. Somewhere deep inside, a small, stubborn fear whispered, "What if Lily grows up resenting me for taking her father away? What if she blames me for the absence I'm choosing now?" Emily swallowed hard, forcing herself to push through the guilt that wasn't hers to carry. She had to believe that choosing peace over appearances was the real act of love. Then, with sudden determination, she stood and walked to the window. The sunlight bathed her face in gold, and for the first time in so long, she didn't feel invisible. She felt seen by herself. She realized no amount of gifts or grand gestures could buy back the trust that had been shattered. Not anymore. Outside, the afternoon sun painted the city in shades of possibility. She felt another kick from the baby, stronger this time, like an affirmation. "Help me finish the crib," she asked, turning back to Jordan. "I want to have it ready before the rest of the furniture arrives tomorrow." As they returned to their task, Emily found herself softly humming a lullaby, one her grandmother used to sing. For the first time in weeks, the tune didn't feel like a broken promise, but like a new beginning. At 8 months pregnant, Emily sat in Catherine Mendez's office, staring at the documents spread across the polished desk. Financial records revealed the full scope of Tyler's deception. Not just emotional betrayals, but financial ones too. Credit cards she'd never known about, suspicious transfers, hotel charges that painted a damning picture of their marriage's final years. "He's been moving money," Catherine explained, highlighting several transactions. "Setting up accounts we hadn't discovered before. But he made mistakes. Got sloppy when he realized you weren't coming back." Emily traced a finger over a receipt from Ocean View Restaurant, dated the day of her ultrasound appointment. "He spent more on lunch with her than we did on our last anniversary dinner," she noted, her voice steady despite the sting of the revelation. "Men like Tyler often," Catherine began, but was interrupted by a commotion in the outer office. Through the frosted glass, they could see a tall figure arguing with the receptionist. "I have a right to see these documents," Tyler's voice carried through the door. "That's my money she's trying to steal." Catherine quickly pressed a button on her desk phone. "Security, please, and call Miss Parker." But before security could arrive, Tyler pushed through the door. His usually perfect appearance showed signs of strain. His expensive suit slightly rumpled, his hair disheveled from running his hands through it repeatedly. "Emily," he said, his voice shifting into that familiar persuasive tone. "Baby, we need to talk about this reasonably. You're making everything so difficult." Emily felt her heart race but kept her expression neutral. "All communication should go through our lawyers, Tyler. You know that." "Lawyers?" he laughed, but there was an edge to it. "Since when do we need lawyers between us? We're having a baby together. We're family." He took a step forward, ignoring Catherine's warning. "Look, you're really going to throw away everything we built? For what? Because I made some mistakes?" Tyler demanded, his voice rising. "Mr. Simmons," Catherine began, standing up. "You need to leave." "Or what?" Tyler snapped, his mask slipping to reveal the anger underneath. "You've turned my wife against me," filled her head with. "No one turned me against you," Emily interrupted, her voice cutting through his tirade. "You did that all on your own." She stood carefully, one hand supporting her belly. "Every lie, every betrayal, every time you chose someone else over our marriage, that was all you." Tyler's expression flickered between anger and calculation. "You're hormonal, emotional. You're not thinking clearly about our future." The words hung in the air, but suddenly Emily felt something she hadn't expected. Pity. This man with his expensive clothes and practiced charm suddenly seemed small to her. How had she never noticed before how much of him was pure performance? "I'm thinking more clearly than I ever have," she replied. "And our future," she gestured to her pregnant belly. "My future is right here. My child will grow up knowing that love doesn't mean accepting lies. That respect isn't something you have to beg for." At that moment, security arrived, accompanied by Jordan, who took in the scene with a cold fury. "Really, Tyler?" Jordan said, her voice dripping with disdain. "Barging into a lawyer's office? That's going to look great in front of a judge." Tyler's face reddened. "You turned her against me," he accused his sister. "You've always been jealous of my success, my perfect life." "Perfect?" Jordan's laugh was sharp. "Your wife is leaving you? Your family finally sees through you, and you're making a scene in a law office. Is that your definition of perfect?" The security guards moved forward, but Tyler held up his hands. "Fine, I'm leaving." He turned to Emily one last time. "When you're done with this ridiculous drama, when you want our child to have a real family, you know where to find me." As he was escorted out, Emily sank back into her chair, feeling drained but somehow lighter. Catherine quickly poured her a glass of water while Jordan pulled up a chair beside her. "You okay?" Jordan asked, her usual sarcasm replaced with genuine concern. Emily took a slow sip of water, considering the question. The baby moved within her, a gentle reminder of the future she was fighting for. "You know what's strange?" she said finally. "A month ago his anger would have terrified me. His accusations would have made me doubt everything." She set down the glass. "But now, I just feel free." Catherine began gathering the scattered documents. "That's what happens when you see through the manipulation," she said. "It loses its power." "Speaking of power," Jordan added with a grim smile, "that little display is going to work in our favor. I recorded everything after he barged in. Your lawyer can add it to the file." Emily nodded, but her mind was already elsewhere, in her small new apartment, where a finished nursery waited, where she could make decisions without seeking approval, where she could finally breathe. "Let's finish this," she said, turning back to the financial documents. "I want everything resolved before the baby comes." As they returned to work, Emily felt her child move again, strong and determined, just like its mother was learning to be. At 38 weeks pregnant, Emily sat cross-legged on her new apartment's floor, surrounded by baby clothes, organizing them into neat piles. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows, catching the simple gold band she still wore on her left hand. She twisted it thoughtfully before finally sliding it off and placing it in a small box with other remnants of her married life. The buzzing of her phone interrupted her thoughts. Not Tyler this time, but a response to the job application she had submitted last week. A small publishing house downtown was looking for a part-time editor, work she could largely do from home after the baby arrived. "They want to interview me," she said aloud to Jordan, who was assembling a changing table nearby. "Even knowing I'm due any day." "Of course they do," Jordan replied without looking up from the instruction manual. "You have a degree in English literature and 5 years of freelance experience. Being pregnant doesn't erase your qualifications." Emily ran her hands over a tiny onesie decorated with stars. "Tyler always said freelance editing wasn't a real career, that I should be grateful he supported us." "Tyler," Jordan interrupted firmly, "is an expert in exactly one thing, being Tyler." She set down her screwdriver and looked at Emily directly. "You know what Dad told me yesterday?" Jordan continued. "He's been reviewing Tyler's company finances. Apparently, baby brother's brilliant business acumen involved some creative accounting. A few months ago, this revelation would have devastated Emily. Now it barely surprised her. His whole life was smoke and mirrors. Speaking of smoke, Jordan said, pulling out her phone, Catherine sent over the final divorce agreement this morning. Tyler's lawyer is suddenly very eager to settle. She smiled grimly. Amazing what the threat of a financial audit can do. Emily pushed herself up from the floor, one hand supporting her heavily pregnant belly. She walked to the window, looking out at the city skyline. Her new view wasn't as prestigious as the one from her old house, but it was hers. Every bill she paid, every decision she made, belonged to her alone. A sharp kick from the baby made her gasp. The movements had been getting stronger, more insistent. Lately, her doctor had said it could be any day now. "Have you decided about the birth?" Jordan asked, as if reading her thoughts. "Tyler's mother keeps calling me, insisting she should be there, says it's family tradition." Emily turned from the window, her decision already made. "I want you there," she said simply. "You're the only family I need in that room." Jordan's usual sharp expression softened momentarily. She opened her mouth to respond, but was interrupted by a knock at the door. Through the peephole, Emily saw a delivery person holding a large package. Her heart clenched. Tyler had been sending daily gifts, each accompanied by notes that alternated between pleading and passive-aggressive manipulation. But this package was different. The return address was from her own mother, who had been largely silent throughout the separation, torn between supporting her daughter and avoiding conflict with her prestigious son-in-law. Inside the package, Emily found her old baby blanket, carefully preserved, along with a letter in her mother's flowing handwriting. "My dearest Emily, I've been a coward, letting fear of confrontation keep me quiet, but watching you stand up for yourself and your baby has given me courage too. I'm sorry I didn't support you sooner. I'm sorry I let Tyler's charm blind me to what he was doing to you. This blanket kept you safe and warm once. Now it's your turn to provide that safety for your little one. You're stronger than I ever was, sweetheart. Your baby is lucky to have a mother who knows her own worth. All my love, Mom." Tears blurred Emily's vision as she held the soft blanket to her face. It smelled of home, not the artificial perfection of her life with Tyler, but the genuine warmth of her childhood. "Your mother finally found her spine," Jordan observed, reading the letter over Emily's shoulder. "Better late than never." Emily carefully folded the blanket and placed it in the newly assembled crib. The nursery was coming together, not with Tyler's expensive designer pieces, but with items chosen with love and purpose. The walls, which she had painted herself, despite Jordan's protests about pregnancy and paint fumes, were a soft green, reminding her of spring and new beginnings. "I used to think I was nothing without him," Emily said quietly as she arranged the blanket. "That I needed his confidence, his certainty, his way of making everything seem perfect." A sudden wave of uncertainty caught her off guard. Could she really do this alone? Could she be enough, strong enough, wise enough, loving enough, to give her baby the life she deserved without a partner? Doubts flickered like shadows across her heart, but as she touched the tiny folded clothes and the familiar old blanket, she reminded herself, every step she had taken had been toward this moment, this choice. She wasn't perfect, but she was present, and that would have to be enough. And now a contraction tightened across her belly, mild, just practice for what was to come. Emily breathed through it, reminded of how far she had come, how much stronger she had grown. "Now," she said, "I know that real confidence isn't about seeming perfect. It's about being real, being whole." She looked around the small but vibrant room, feeling a rush of pride. Every brushstroke on the walls, every tiny onesie folded neatly, was a testament to her strength, her choice to choose a future she had built with her own hands, not one dictated by someone else's promises. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the nursery floor, but Emily wasn't afraid of shadows anymore. She knew now that they were just proof of light. The contractions started at midnight, gentle at first, like waves lapping at the shore. Emily paced her small apartment, timing each one carefully on her phone. By dawn, they had intensified enough that she called Jordan, who arrived within 20 minutes, her usual tailored blazer slightly askew in her rush. "Your bag's packed?" Jordan asked immediately, taking charge of the situation. Emily nodded, pausing to breathe through another contraction. "By the door. Birth plans in the front pocket." The drive to the hospital was a blur of increasing pain and focused breathing. Emily clutched the armrest as another contraction hit, stronger than before. Through the car window, she watched the sun rise over Boulder, painting the sky in shades of new beginnings. The maternity ward was quiet when they arrived, but it quickly became a flurry of activity as the nurses realized how far along she was. "Baby's eager to meet you," one nurse commented, checking Emily's progress. 4 hours later, the contractions were coming hard and fast. Emily gripped Jordan's hand, all pretense of composure forgotten. "I can't," she gasped after a particularly brutal wave of pain. "Yes, you can," Jordan replied firmly, wiping Emily's forehead with a cool cloth. "You're the strongest person I know." A commotion in the hallway drew their attention. "She's my wife!" Tyler's voice carried through the door. "That's my child being born." Emily's next contraction was accompanied by a surge of panic. "I don't want him here," she managed between breaths. "Please." Jordan squeezed her hand. "I'll handle it." She strode to the door, her boot heels clicking purposefully. Through the haze of pain, Emily heard fragments of the confrontation. Tyler's demands, Jordan's steel-edged replies, hospital security being called. Then another contraction claimed her full attention, and the world narrowed to nothing but breath and effort. "Your mother-in-law is in the waiting room too," a nurse informed them once things had quieted down. "She's quite insistent." "No visitors," Emily said firmly, surprising herself with the strength in her voice despite her exhaustion. "Just my sister-in-law." The next few hours were a symphony of pain, encouragement, and determination. Jordan remained a steady presence, her usual cynicism replaced by unwavering support. When the final moments came, she held Emily's hand and whispered, "You've got this. You're not alone." At 3:47 p.m., with a final heroic effort, Emily brought her daughter into the world. The sound of the baby's first cry split the air, strong and defiant, just like her mother was learning to be. "She's perfect," the doctor announced, placing the squirming bundle on Emily's chest. "Congratulations, Mom." Emily stared down at her daughter, taking in every detail. The tiny fingers, the rosebud mouth, the wispy dark hair. Tears streamed down her face as she counted each perfect toe. This was what real love felt like. Pure, unconditional, without manipulation or pretense. "Hello, Lily," she whispered, the name she had chosen weeks ago, finally belonging to this real, breathing person. Not named after any of Tyler's other women, but after the flowers that grew wild and free in her grandmother's garden. Jordan, uncharacteristically emotional, wiped her eyes. "She looks like you," she said softly. "Strong, beautiful." A nurse appeared with paperwork. "The birth certificate," she explained. "Father's name?" Emily looked down at her daughter, then over at Jordan. "Leave it blank," she said firmly. "She doesn't need his name to be complete." Later that evening, as twilight painted the hospital room in soft shadows, Emily cradled Lily while Jordan dozed in a nearby chair. A text arrived from Tyler. "She's my daughter too. You can't keep her from me." Emily looked at her sleeping child, then typed a response she had been rehearsing in her heart for months. "You're right. She is your daughter, and when she's old enough, she can choose what relationship she wants with you. But you don't get to control that. Just like you don't get to control me anymore." She turned off her phone before he could reply, focusing instead on Lily's peaceful face. Outside her window, the city lights twinkled like stars, each one a reminder that darkness was just an opportunity for light to shine brighter. "We did it, little one," she whispered to her daughter. "We're free." Lily stirred in her sleep, her tiny hand wrapping around Emily's finger with surprising strength. In that grip, Emily felt all the certainty she would ever need about her choices, her future, and the kind of mother she would be. 3 weeks after Lily's birth, Emily sat in her apartment's small home office, gently rocking Lily's bassinet with one foot while reviewing a manuscript on her laptop. The publishing house had offered her the editing position, with the flexibility to work from home until Lily was older. Her first assignment sat open on her screen, waiting for her experienced eye. A gentle knock at the door made her look up. Jordan entered, carrying 2 cups of coffee and wearing an expression Emily had learned to read all too well. "Tyler's lawyer called," Jordan said without preamble, setting down the cups. "They want to discuss visitation rights." Emily's hand stilled on the bassinet. Lily slept peacefully, unaware of the storms that still swirled around her tiny life. "I knew this was coming," Emily said softly. "Catherine warned me it would." "You don't have to decide anything right now," Jordan reminded her, taking a seat on the small office couch. Her boot tapped against the floor, not in frustration this time, but in thought. "The temporary orders give you full custody until the hearing." Emily looked down at her sleeping daughter, studying the delicate features that somehow managed to be uniquely Lily's own, neither fully hers nor Tyler's. "He has a right to know his daughter," Emily said finally, "but it has to be on terms that protect her." As if sensing she was the topic of discussion, Lily stirred and began to fuss. Emily lifted her daughter with practiced ease, breathing in the sweet baby scent that still made her heart swell every time. "Tyler's been making appearances at Dad's office?" Jordan continued, watching Emily settle into the nursing routine. "Playing the reformed man. Says fatherhood has changed his perspective on life." Emily almost laughed. "Let me guess, he runs his hands through his hair when he says it?" "Every time," Jordan confirmed with a wry smile. "But Dad's not buying it anymore. Neither is Mom, surprisingly. That stunt he pulled at the hospital during the birth, it opened a lot of eyes." Lily finished nursing, and Emily gently burped her, marveling at how natural these motions had become. 3 weeks, and already she couldn't imagine life without these quiet moments, these small victories of motherhood. Her phone buzzed with an email notification. The publishing house wanted her thoughts on a new manuscript. Such a simple thing, but it represented everything she had fought for: independence, professional respect, the chance to build a life on her own terms. "I have a meeting with Catherine tomorrow," Emily said, settling Lily back into the bassinet, "to discuss the visitation terms." She took a sip of her coffee, now lukewarm, but still welcome. "I want to be fair but firm." Jordan raised an eyebrow. "Fair? After everything he did?" "Not for him," Emily clarified. "For Lily. Someday she'll be old enough to ask questions about her father. I want to be able to tell her I did everything I could to give her the chance to know him. Even if he doesn't take it," Emily said quietly. A cry from the bassinet interrupted their conversation. Emily reached for her daughter, but Jordan was faster, scooping up her niece with surprising gentleness. "Hello, little warrior," Jordan cooed, her usually sharp demeanor softening as Lily grabbed her finger. "You're going to be as strong as your mother, aren't you?" Emily watched them, remembering the day she had found Tyler's phone, how lost and broken she had felt. Now, looking at her daughter in her aunt's arms, she felt nothing but certainty. Later that evening, after Jordan had left and Lily was asleep in her crib, Emily sat at her small kitchen table, her laptop open. The divorce papers were finalized, all signed and filed. The visitation agreement was next, and after that, the last pieces of her old life would be formally dismantled. A text arrived from Tyler. "I've changed. Being a father changes everything. We could still be a family." Emily looked at the message for a long moment, remembering how those words would once have made her heart race with hope. Now they just felt hollow, like everything else about her ex-husband's carefully constructed facade. She glanced at the baby monitor where Lily's peaceful breathing created gentle ripples on the sound display. In the quiet of her small apartment, surrounded by the life she had built from scratch, Emily typed a response. "We are a family, Tyler. Lily and me. You can be part of her life if you choose, but not by manipulating your way back into mine. Those days are over." She sent the message and closed her phone, turning instead to the manuscript waiting for her review. Outside her window, the city hummed with life, and somewhere in the distance, a bird sang to welcome the approaching dawn. Emily smiled, feeling the weight of her choices, not as a burden anymore, but as a crown. She traced a finger around the edge of her coffee cup, savoring the quiet, the freedom. This was the life she had rebuilt from ruins, a life that no longer trembled under someone else's shadow. Yet even as she embraced the stillness, a pang of guilt slipped through her defenses. Would Lily, one day, ask why she hadn't tried harder to keep their family together? Would she blame her for choosing peace over reconciliation? Emily closed her eyes briefly, breathing through the familiar ache. She reminded herself, peace was a gift she was fighting to give her daughter, even if Lily wouldn't understand it right away. And deep down, she knew it was the right choice. She was mother, provider, protector, and finally, gloriously free. 1 year later, Emily stood in her apartment's living room, watching Lily take wobbly steps toward her favorite stuffed elephant. The morning sun streamed through the windows, catching the auburn highlights in her daughter's dark curls. At 12 months old, Lily was a force of nature, determined, curious, and completely unaware of the battles fought before her birth. The sound of heels clicking on hardwood announced Jordan's arrival. "Ready for today?" she asked, setting down her ever-present briefcase. Emily nodded, smoothing her professional attire, a far cry from the uncertain woman she had been a year ago. The manuscript's finished, and Catherine has the final custody agreement ready for signing. The past year had brought changes neither woman could have predicted. Emily's part-time editing position had evolved into a senior role, her keen eye and dedication earning her a reputation in Boulder's publishing circle. The small apartment had become a true home, filled with Lily's laughter and the comfortable chaos of a life well lived. Tyler had changed too, though not in the way he had promised. His supervised visits with Lily were sporadic at best, each one preceded by grand declarations of reformation that rarely translated into action. But Emily had learned to navigate these waters with grace, keeping her daughter's best interests at heart without letting Tyler's inconsistency derail her own progress. "Dad mentioned Tyler's company is struggling," Jordan said, scooping up Lily as she toddled past. Apparently, some clients started asking questions about those creative accounting practices. Emily felt a flutter of her old anxiety, but it passed quickly. Tyler's problems were no longer hers to solve. His crumbling facade was no longer her concern. Her focus remained on the stack of manuscripts awaiting her review, and the young life flourishing under her care. The doorbell rang. Catherine arrived with the final paperwork. The custody agreement had been carefully crafted over months of negotiation, establishing clear boundaries and expectations. Tyler would have the opportunity to be part of Lily's life, but on terms that protected both mother and child from his manipulative tendencies. "Everything's in order," Catherine said, spreading the documents on Emily's small dining table. "Once these are signed, the temporary orders will be replaced with permanent ones." As Emily reviewed the papers, Lily broke free from Jordan's arms and wobbled toward her mother, tiny hands reaching up in a familiar gesture. Emily lifted her daughter, breathing in the sweet baby shampoo scent that lingered in her curls. "Mama," Lily said clearly, one of the few words in her growing vocabulary. The simple words still had the power to make Emily's heart swell. A text notification lit up Emily's phone. "Tyler, predictably trying one last time. Are you sure about this? Permanent orders seem so final. We could try counseling again." Emily looked at her daughter, seeing in Lily's determined expression the same strength she had found in herself. Without hesitation, she picked up the pen and signed her name on each marked line, her signature strong and clear. The ink dried quickly under her steady hand, sealing a future she had chosen, not one dictated by regrets or second guesses. "It's done," Catherine announced, gathering the papers. "I'll file these today." Later that evening, after Lily was asleep and the apartment had settled into its nighttime quiet, Emily sat at her desk, working on her latest editing project. Her phone buzzed with a message from her mother, asking about lunch plans for the weekend. Their relationship had healed over the past year, growing stronger as both women learned to stand firm in their truths. A gentle breeze carried the sounds of the city through her open window, traffic and distant music, the rhythm of life continuing its endless dance. On her desk, a framed photo showed Lily's smiling face, the embodiment of everything Emily had fought for and won. First steps, captured by Jordan's quick camera work. Beside it lay the latest manuscript Emily was editing, a story about transformation and courage that resonated deeply with her own journey. Emily touched the frame gently, remembering the woman she had been that Sunday morning a year ago, folding baby clothes and harboring secret fears. The path from there to here hadn't been easy, but every step had led her exactly where she needed to be. Her daughter slept peacefully in the next room. Their home was filled with books and dreams instead of lies and pretense, and her work brought both satisfaction and independence. The scars of her past had become medals of honor, testifying to battles fought and won. In the quiet of her living room, Emily opened her laptop to continue her work. The cursor blinked on the screen, steady and sure, like her heartbeat, like her resolve, like the love she had for her daughter. Outside, the city lights twinkled against the dark sky, no longer mocking her with what she had lost, but celebrating everything she had gained. She was no longer the woman who had believed in false promises and perfect facades. She was Emily Grace Simmons, editor, mother, survivor, and her story, like the ones she brought to life through her work, had found its true beginning in what she had once thought was the end. A small smile touched her lips as she typed the opening line of her next review. Every word she chose now came from a place of strength, not fear. She was no longer merely surviving. She was thriving. 5 years later, the autumn breeze rustled through the oak trees lining the playground as Emily watched 5-year-old Lily climb the jungle gym. Her daughter's laughter carried across the park, bright and fearless, mixing with the sounds of other children playing on the sunny Saturday morning. "Hi, Mama. Look how high I can go," Lily called out, her dark curls bouncing as she scaled another level. "I see you, sweetheart," Emily called back, her heart full of the simple joy of these moments. At the edge of the playground, Jordan stood checking her phone, her signature blazer replaced by a casual sweater for weekend aunt duty. Life had settled into its own rhythm. Over the years, Emily had been promoted to senior editor at the publishing house, her keen eye for storytelling earning her a strong reputation in Boulder's literary community. Their small apartment had been replaced by a modest but comfortable townhouse, bought with her own savings and decorated proudly with Lily's artwork. Tyler's visits had grown increasingly rare over the years. His promises of changed behavior faded like morning mist. His last attempt at contact had been 6 months ago. A brief email full of excuses about missing a scheduled visit, words that no longer had the power to wound. Lily had learned not to expect him, finding instead a circle of love in her mother, her aunt, her grandparents, and the family they had chosen for themselves. "Mom, can we have ice cream after?" Lily's voice pulled Emily from her thoughts. "After lunch," Emily promised, watching her daughter's determined expression, so like her own now, free from the shadows of the past. Later that evening, as Emily tucked Lily into bed, her daughter asked the question she had been expecting for some time. "Why doesn't Daddy come to see me like other daddies?" Emily sat on the edge of the bed, choosing her words carefully. "Sometimes, sweetheart, people aren't ready to be the parents children deserve. But that doesn't mean you're not loved. You have so many people who love you completely. Like you and Aunt Jordan and Grandma and Grandpa?" Exactly like that. Lily seemed to consider this, her young face serious in the soft glow of her nightlight. "I'm glad you're my mama," she said finally before drifting off to sleep. Standing in the doorway, Emily watched her daughter's peaceful slumber. On her desk downstairs, a manuscript waited for her review. Another story of transformation and hope. But her own story, she realized, had evolved beyond mere survival. She had built something beautiful from the ashes of her past, a life filled with purpose, joy, and unconditional love. She pressed a hand to her heart, feeling it beat strong and steady. Every wrong turn, every heartbreak had led her here, to this life she had chosen, to the little girl who loved her so wholly, so fearlessly. The scars remained, but they had faded into something else entirely, landmarks on a map that had led her home. What would you do if you discovered a betrayal at the most vulnerable moment in your life? Would you choose to forgive, as so many suggested to Emily? Or would you find the courage to rebuild your life from scratch, despite all the challenges? Dear friend, life doesn't always break us with a roar. Sometimes it reshapes us with a whisper, in the quiet moments we never expected would matter. Like Emily, we all face times when the world we carefully built shatters without warning. But as the Stoics remind us, what stands in the way becomes the way. Every hardship, every betrayal, is not an end. It's a beginning, disguised as heartbreak. It's the forge where our true strength is born. If you find yourself standing at the crossroads of pain and possibility, I hope you remember, you are not broken. You are becoming. Keep choosing your own story, no matter how hard the pages are to turn. Your participation in this channel is very important. Please leave your opinion in the comments. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, Please leave a like to help me out, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the next stories. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.